My name is Maria Norman, and I'm an artist, filmmaker, costume maker, drag performer, priestess of nature, and independent researcher. I research subjects and persons from the art, dance, and entertainment world of the so-called La Belle Époque. The time span roughly between the years 1871 and 1914. I will speak about the artist Toulouse-Lautrec and some of the most common myths and rumors surrounding him. The very last one will indeed be très piquant. He was like a nobleman or something. Yes, it's true. He was of three French noble lines, of Toulouse, of Lautrec, and Montfort. The House of Toulouse can be traced back to 845, and possibly further, to the times of Charlemagne. Had he outlived his father, the super eccentric deadbeat dad, Count Alphonse de Toulouse-Lautrec Montfort, he had become a count and head of the noble house of Toulouse-Lautrec. Did he live in a brothel? Yes and no. True and false. So, he did have a home address, but during some years in the mid-1890s, he stayed for some days and sometimes 2 to 3 weeks at a time in brothels. So he never permanently lived in a brothel, but stayed there long enough to have meetings set up on the premises, for example. He was rich and didn't have to work. Yeah, true. His family were aristocrats and landowners. They had several castles, and there was no lack of money for sure. He received an ample allowance from his family. And yeah, it's true that he didn't have to work. Actually, he was expected by the aristocratic tradition in the family to not have a commercial career. Yet painting was considered an acceptable and honorable vocation. He got paid for some of the posters and illustrations, and he took commissions from his friends, but most of it was actually an expense to him, like it cost him more to print than what he got in return. But yeah, he was rich. Toulouse-Lautrec was free to make the kind of art that he wanted to make. He was at the Moulin Rouge a lot, and painted can-can girls. Yes, true. He was there when it opened on the 6th of October 1889, and he had a table reserved for himself at the venue. He was a regular until around the mid-1890s, when his favorite dancers had left the venue. He would sit there and at his reserved table, and he would sketch and he would drink. And he would work on larger canvases and drawings in his studio, which, just like his home addresses, were within walking distance from the Moulin Rouge. And yeah, yes, can-can girls. That word conjures up a certain kind of image. But in his time, they looked more like this. Dancers with their own individual clothing style, dance style, and temperament. Some were plump by today's standards, and I believe all of them were way too short to meet the demands of the present-day Moulin Rouge, who only employ women over 175 centimeters, 5'9", with, quote, a slim, graceful figure, end quote. So forget the row of samey-looking ladies performing a synced choreography. It didn't look like that in Lautrec's time. Hey, think of the dance and its performers, past and present, what you will. But this dance takes stamina, flexibility. It's intense. Please think of them at least the way you think of gymnasts, as persons with immense skill, instead of just floosy, woosy, frippy, hopping ladies. Take it from someone who has indeed performed it. Bet you didn't see that coming. He drank a lot of absinthe. Yes, true. He enjoyed strong drink, and he did like the infamous and mythic drink, which is nicknamed the Green Fairy. It was banned in the US and much of Europe in 1915 after an infamous Swiss murder case. The drink was believed to make people go mad and commit gruesome crimes like the said murder. Here is a photo, by the way, of Lautrec indulging in the drink, and his artist friend Lucien Métivier is having some dark colored drink, red wine perhaps. The cocktail named Tremblement de Terre, meaning earthquake, is said to have been invented by Toulouse-Lautrec. It's a potent mixture containing half absinthe and half cognac in a wine goblet. He had dwarfism and was like 1 meters, 3.2 feet, right? No, it's false. He was in fact 151 centimeters, 5 feet tall, which is short, yet the average height of French men around the year 1900 was 164 centimeters, 5 feet, 4.5 inches. But why was he short? Well, the fact that his parents were first cousins and their parents were first cousins had a negative effect on Toulouse-Lautrec's health. The genetic disease he likely had is called Toulouse-Lautrec syndrome, posthumously after him. Its scientific name is pycnodysostosис. Some symptoms of pycnodysostosис, which he did have, is brittle bones which easily break, abnormalities in the skull and face, such as a prominent nose and lips. His fontanelle didn't close, and he had sinus problems. These sinus problems and nose problems made him produce excess saliva, sniffle, and he spoke with a lisp. He had 2 accidents in his disease-ridden childhood. He fell and broke his legs on 2 occasions when he was, a teenager. And thereafter they never grew. He used a cane for support. But he did not have dwarfism, and he wasn't what we today call a little person. I hope I'm using the respectful words, as my intention is to be respectful towards disabled persons, while spreading awareness about Toulouse-Lautrec's medical state. English is not my native tongue, so if some of the words I use aren't the correct ones, I apologize. He was friends with sex workers. Yes, true. He was their customer, and unlike others, he didn't treat them merely as objects, but as friends and lovers. I'm not defending him per se, just saying that he wasn't their average client, because when he stayed at the brothels, he shared their meals. He added sweetmeats, pâtés, and fine wines to their menu. He remembered the dates of their birthdays and brought them presents. He played cards with them during leisure hours. He listened, he drafted letters, and he consoled them. He invited the women to his studio and took some of them to see plays on their day off. He never had a girlfriend, ever. His only lovers were workers from brothels. Well, no, false. If you by girlfriend mean a love relation which lasts for some time. He did have 1 love relation when he was around 21 to 24 years old, and it was with the artist and model Suzanne Valadon. His friend Sando Maneghi recommended Suzanne as a model, and she became his model and mistress. Suzanne was 20 years old, the illegitimate daughter of a laundress, and she was a more macho wild child. She had drawn and painted since childhood, and Toulouse-Lautrec was impressed by her work and encouraged her to continue with art. Most people of this time didn't think it was suitable for women to pursue a career in the arts. In 1888, their relationship ended when he discovered that she had talked to her mother about faking a suicide to trick Toulouse-Lautrec into marrying her. He was a drunk, right? From around the year 1896, when he was 32, yes, true. There are sad anecdotes of how he would disappear from home and be escorted back days later by the gendarmerie, the police, with his clothes soiled and his nose broken. He eventually suffered delirium tremens and was sent to stay for some months in a mental institution. The man loved to drink, and if he loved something and was able to indulge in it, he sure did. He seems to have had an addictive personality. But his love for strong drink spiraled into grave alcoholism, which worsened around the year 1896 and continued to his early death in 1901. Did he have a hollowed-out cane containing alcohol? Yes, it's true. In 1899, he was released from an asylum where he had been sent after an attack of delirium tremens. Toulouse-Lautrec was thereafter put under the watchful eye of a guardian, Paul Viaud, who had been appointed by Toulouse-Lautrec's family. But he relapsed. Viaud had of course noticed a walking stick with a silver knob, which Lautrec had recently bought from an Italian antique dealer. But there was one thing about it he did not know. It was hollow and concealed a long glass container which could hold about half a liter. And in the knob there was a little cup. In May 1900, Toulouse-Lautrec gave his hollow stick to his friend, the gastronomer Kernonsky, before departing on a trip. His guardian, Viaud, had discovered the trick. Kernonsky gave the cane to the Toulouse-Lautrec Museum in Albi, where it is at present. You can see a short demonstration of it in this video from 1964. I do not know if he had it hollowed out. Probably not. It was likely manufactured this way. But since cane makers have been inspired to continue making hollowed out canes containing vials to be filled with, well, preferred liquid. And the name that they give to this cane type? Toulouse-Lautrec cane, of course. So all photos of him where he has a cane is not of this sad cane, but he did indeed have one that was hollowed out, and yeah, he filled it up with alcohol, and it still exists. He was a tragic figure, right? Well, alcoholism is tragic. And yeah, when he was young, he did picture a life for himself where he would be able to do things like hunt and ride a horse, like his ancestors, the Counts of Toulouse. But his injuries and his condition made this impossible. But to think of his life as a tragedy and him as a tragic figure is, in my opinion, ableist and not fair. Because think of the things he saw and the fun things that he experienced. And he enjoyed himself a little too much, but still. And, very importantly, he grew up as an outcast in his milieu, although he was never ostracized. But he was someone who faced ridicule all his life, yet he was able to find people who he could actually fit in with, where he was, so to speak, just one of many weirdos, and he found true friends. This is not something that all who face social rejection actually get to experience. And he feverishly worked on his art. The intensity and the devotion is fantastic. He was one of the most prolific artists of his time. Yes, he became an alcoholic. So yeah, it's true that from age 32 in 1896 and until his death at age 36, he was a tragic figure. Like the hardships were way greater than the positive aspects of his lifestyle. The kitten Toulouse in the Aristocats film is named after him. Yes, it's true. This aristocratic kitten is orange colored. He admires alley cats and he paints. This is how many children first hear of Toulouse-Lautrec, when someone tells them that there was once an artist with this name. This is how I first heard of him. Did he have an abnormally large penis? The fact that we're still talking about this, 124 years after his death, would have amused him greatly. Legend has it that women from the brothels he frequented gave him a nickname which he did indeed use: the coffee pot. One of these old coffee pots, which has a big spout. So well, true or false? How the flying Flanders should I know? So, there does exist photographs of him without clothing, yet you can't really tell, since that certain part of him is obscured by shadows. Or the photo is taken from far away. And, well, one can't really trust his own caricatures of himself. Genitalian abnormalities isn't a symptom noted in the list of symptoms of his disease. One symptom of it, though, is short limbs, and Toulouse-Lautrec did have legs which were the size and proportions of a young teenager. Place a normal to slightly larger than normal member between them, and well, I suppose you get the said coffee pot effect. Because of the proportions? So I can't say for sure that it was or wasn't abnormally large, but if not, proportions likely made it seem so. Oh, you're happy now, Henri, aren't you? We're talking about your ding-dong, and in English on top of that. He was actually an Anglophile. He fancied English language and style. He even spoke decent English himself. So yeah, old chum, I can tell you now as jolly as a sandboy that this rumor about you is still going. That was all I had on these subjects, although I'm sure there's always more to say and other sources to consult. I did my best to get all the facts right and to tell an interesting story. Et malheureusement, je ne parle pas français. Je suis désolée.